Hey guys, Lotus Streams here, coming at you with another review. Today I'm gonna review Codex Grey, and I have pretty much everything lined up here. Some stuff about 7s to 8s and then 8s index to Codex. Some new units, changes to what changed within the Codex, comparison to the index specifically. And then obviously the new psychic powers and Warlord traits and the entire thing that makes Grey Knights essentially. Because currently they don't have much. In 7th edition, Grey Knights was known for being an Alpha Strike army, and that is a fact because they have deep striking. They also have very low mobility, no access to bikers pretty much. Rhino's not very good in the last edition as well. Can't assault out of them, and your units are assaulty. You have to get in range, otherwise you have huge problems with closing the gap, and obviously you have good melee capabilities, but not so much with the shooting at any range, pretty much. And the deep striking obviously helps you with a lot of these disadvantages, but always leaves you vulnerable, so a lot of guys invested into dropping down enough stuff at the same time so that very expensive units don't get picked off too easily and try to eliminate stuff before it can hurt them, which led to the Alpha Strike strategy being very predominant. Or invisibility cheese, but that's all gone. They always had extremely specialized units. Their weapons are psi weapons. They deal multiple damage a pop. And in the last edition it was instant killing, which is essentially the exact same thing, which is really powerful against some units and absolutely useless against everything else, because obviously instant killing Grot doesn't do anything. Their abilities are also extremely geared towards something. They are all about the psychic shenanigans, Deny the Witch, causing problems with demons. Their artifacts were also geared towards that, but the majority of this is never coming into play at all, which is really painful most of the time because they behave like normal Marines at some point with power swords. They always had to pay for these abilities as well, and for the fact that they are Psykers. Now, they are not really Psykers last edition because they do not have enough warp charges produced by themselves to cast all the powers, and the warp charges were the limiting factor on how many powers you could cast. And then they don't even get to choose the ability, but they make their close combat even better, which is already good because they have the psi weapons. But you get Hammer Hand, which adds strength to this, which still doesn't hurt light vehicles very well and is obviously not very useful if you can't even get into close combat, which was a huge problem last edition. So that's all in one point here. Extremely specialized units means they are effective against targets they are specifically designed to kill. Against everything else, they are probably overcosted. And you don't have any options to take anything else because your weaponry does cost a lot and you have to pay points to change. You're always running around with the sword, never something else. The wannabe Psyker's point is just about the fact that they can't really hurt stuff with their casting, because the hammer hand only increases their ability to smack down something in melee, and the other power is only effective against demons, which goes back to the first point. So they are lacking ranged AT because we only have access to Psy cannons, considering that AT at least was not very good against the majority of vehicles. Low AP value, not enough strength to gun something down reliably, and extreme price increase from last edition, and servo weapons, making this even worse and only doable with Terminators. Means we have Land Raiders, which are extremely expensive and obviously meant as a transport, and we have Stormraven gunships, which is again the exact same thing as Land Raider, just too expensive. In a very expensive and elite army, which is a very bad combination. The Nemesis Strike Force is pretty much mandatory because the Alpha Strike has to happen early, otherwise you can't win any games on tactical advantages. And Objective Secure was possible, but I almost always had to go with the Nemesis Strike Force just for the turn 1 deep striking, which is a big deal with such an army that has to get table control before anything happens and not before the... if the enemy gets to move a few turns, you essentially lost the game because you don't have the spread or the unit amount to get on the map and take stuff. Alright, that's Grandmaster 7s. Now we are in 8th edition, so that's the index. We still have the problem with the deep strike, nothing happened pretty much. The only big difference here is that the deep strike is 100% reliable, and you can't take risks anymore, and you getting in charge range right away. That's something that's huge. That's actually one of the biggest things. Problem is, it's still 9 inches, so that's a lot of charge distance to make. And obviously grenades do not have any capabilities of re-rolling charges, which changes now, but it's still an issue they have as before. Extremely specialized units is still the same. We all have the same stuff, but something changed. We now have more options because we can swap our swords for staffs, for hammers, anything pretty much, and the only thing that costs points is the hammer. And that hammer got dropped by 2 points. Hey, one more Stormbolter. But you know, we still don't have much options to drop stuff, but we can at least exchange stuff, which is obviously a very good trait to have. The next thing is the psychic powers. They are now real psychic powers, but they have only 3 of them, and they are pretty meh because you only can use them once per psychic phase in match play, and the rest is smite, and obviously smite got nerfed, but still in comparison to 7th edition obviously way better because units now get to deal damage with a spell they can cast. The amount of units now limits the access to psychic powers, and also the amount of psychic powers you can cast per phase, and obviously that is way better than warp charges because that is not a real deal. You essentially need 2 or 3 squads to cast 1 power. Now each squad individually can cast multiple powers. The lacking ranged ATs thing is still a problem, although you can ally in stuff that deals with this much more easily because you can fit them inside your own detachments. That's a big thing for Grey Knights because they don't have the extra points to get another scout squad in AHQ, and then they get access to AT. So that's one thing, but it's still an issue in the index. And the last thing is really a big deal. All lists are possible, and there's no benefits army-wise, but in theory you could build any army you like. You could spam purgation squads, you could spam baby carriers until everything is filled with baby carriers and you have 1 HQ, because the heavy support slot is no longer a limitation to what you can take. Keep this in mind for the next one because the Codex helps us out even more with the idea that we can gain benefits, although we do not have to fulfill any new detachment rules other than taking units we wanted to take anyway, which is Grey Knight units, because obviously we want to play Grey Knights. And that is Index 8th edition. Now, the Grey Knights 8th edition Codex changes a bunch of stuff, and this is a list of changes before I get into what exactly happened. So first of all, we never had chaplains. Chaplains are now a thing. They're essentially the same as every other Grey Knight. They don't have any options. They have the Crucis Arcanum, and they are Psyker level 1. Nothing really special there. Obviously Terminator chaplains, I think. They have the Rosarios, that's it. The Storm Talon Gunship and the Stormhawk Interceptor can now be taken in this detachment, which was never a thing, and they can change their chapter to Grey Knights, which is a big deal because we have a detachment now that requires to take Grey Knight units. So you can take them legally, no issue, and both of these options can do something for your ranged anti-tank if you choose to take them. Although they are pretty squishy, they are still very effective, and they are flyers, which are really good this edition. So good options there, and they are not changed in any way. They have the same war gear as you would expect. Dreadnought War Gear was lost just with the Space Marine Codex starting this off. They do not have double autocannons and the like. They only have their fists replaceable with a missile launcher, and the rest of the options is as before. But now they gained a psychic power because they only had access to Smite. Now they know a power from Sanctic and Smite, which is nice because that means the Dreadnought can teleport himself around the map and can do other shenanigans with the new psychic powers I'll talk about later. But this is actually a huge bonus to this Dreadnought specifically because it gets to teleport, which is really scary if you think about it, because drop pods are essentially useless now because they're too expensive. And this guy has an innate ability. Once per turn he can just move anywhere on the board he likes to, and he will be 9 inches away from a enemy unit. And that's a big deal. That's a really big deal because obviously you could say, well, you could do that before, you just drop one guy next to him and yeah, there you go. The problem is that Grey Knights are very expensive units, and if you drop one guy just for the Dreadnought to teleport around, you're essentially dropping over 100 points just to get him around. Essentially, you're paying for a drop pod, because that guy is gonna be at the end of the world where the Dreadnought was hiding originally, and now he can hide by himself somewhere where he can't be seen. You will drop him just like a normal drop pod essentially, but he doesn't have to stay in reserves. He can hold an objective if he wants to, and if he feels the objective is not really contested or worth anything, he can teleport, and there you go. Really good one for the Dreadnought. Brotherhood Champion is gone, but obviously he's still in the index, so you can still use him, but he's not in the Codex. The Tech Marine has all his war gear. You can only replace bolt pistols with bolt guns, and the rest is their plasma cutter, servo arm, power axe, whatnot. He has all the options, and that's all he can do. He cannot drop any options. The Grandmaster can now be taken in a Nemesis Dreadknight suit. I'll talk about his profile and so on later, but he's actually a very simple complex. Now, he's very simple to explain because he essentially is the same as a Dreadknight with a aura ability, which is a character. Then we have 6 psychic powers now. Big change, very big change. And I can say right now, the biggest change there is probably because we are limited to using 1 power per psychic phase when we're playing matched play, which is what we play obviously. And 6 powers means we can cast 3 powers more each turn if we want to than before. And in an army that has essentially only psychers, that is gonna be the limiting factor for sure, and not the amount of psychers we have. So the increase in psychic abilities in the total amount is very significant in a Grey Knight army. Not so much in other armies, but this one specifically very much. 6 Warlord traits, pretty good because the existing Warlord traits do not do anything for us that we want. Not specifically at least. I mean, leadership is nice and all, but we would probably have rather something to help us out with the charges, because that's a big issue. The 9-inch charge is not really easy to make. And then finally, last but not least, Stratagems, obviously. Grey Knights are something that I told people about as an army that is actually fine, but has some really glaring issues that you cannot possibly fix. That was the big issue. You cannot drop your force weapons and be like, oh, we're in cheap Marines now. Can't do that. And obviously, Stratagems are helping you out in situations where you need specific stuff that your normal units can't do. So we will have a look at the Strategems under the aspect of what can they do for Grey Knights that they couldn't do before, or can they make something so much better that it actually works now. For example, can it get them into combat, can it deal more damage on ranged, which is a big problem for Grey Knights, something like that. Alright, let's go into the Codex stuff. So Grey Knight army rules are: and they shall know no fear, demon hunters, rites of banishment, teleport strike. Nothing changed at all. Everything has the same rules. Teleport strike is still not an army-wide rule, but dreadnoughts and Purgation Squads, Nemesis Dreadknights all do not have it. They all have the normal rules. Everything else is unchanged. So not much to talk about here because we will talk about Grey Knight detachments, not army rules. That's something different. A Grey Knight detachment is a detachment that only consists of Grey Knight units. So we're not talking about army here, okay? So do not fear, we can still take assassins and whatnot, but we have to put them into a different detachment, which is a limitation. But this is the best possible case because we get OPSEC for troops, which is obviously really nice. We don't have the capability to spam models like it's no one's business because our models are extremely expensive. They're 21 points minimum per guy. And yeah, that's not really something you want to drop onto an objective and hope to contest against orc boys or homogons. So now we have something to deal with that. Next thing is we have +1 to all psychic and deny the witch tests. And that's big. That's really, really big. For example, Smite is warp charge 4 for Grey Knights here. And which essentially means we have only 2 chances to actually fail the test, and that is a very, very low chance, and that is army-wide, because every single unit that will be in range to smite will use smite, most likely. But it's also better for anything you want to cast. For example, new psychic powers, like the Vortex, let's say, because the Vortex is warp charge 8, and 8 is, it's pretty hard to do. Drops down to a 7, which obviously is really okay. That's average. And then with some stratagems added into this, you can make your psychic test more reliable, which is something that Grey Knights were lacking before. They had a huge RNG factor on the warp charge thing. If you failed these things, you couldn't do anything. You had to invest all your dice if you want to do super sure, and but that essentially cripples your entire army per se. Not a thing anymore. This is great. This is something we need in a Psycho army. And then again, this is only a detachment, so you can bring whatever you want in your other detachments. Just don't make it a Grey Knight thing. If you want to ally in Grey Knights into your existing detachment, that's not an issue, but you don't get the OPSEC and the Psychic addition, which is not always a problem. I'll talk about that later when we go into list building and whatnot. Next thing is Warlord traits. Any GK character that is your Warlord can take these. They have Demon Slayer, which is -1 to ++ saves for demons, which is useless. Let's call it as it is. They always deal very, very well with demons in terms of smite, in terms of rerolling wounds, in terms of artifacts. They don't need it. Khal Drago obviously has this because he always has this Warlord trait, but it doesn't matter. Khal Drago is good as is. He does not need a Warlord trait, and he doesn't have to be the Warlord either. Hammer of Righteousness, +1 to wound rolls when charging. Although it's a pretty powerful one, others are better. That's all I'm going to say about this, but because +1 to wounding is actually a pretty big deal, because it's hard to wound something on a 2+, and with something like the Nemesis hammer, everything that goes through is actually really, really important. So the bigger the weapon is, the better this Warlord trait gets. That's essentially the idea. If you have a Nemesis Force Sword on somebody that is your Warlord, then this one is really bad. Unyielding Anvil, immunity morale within 6. You have pretty high morale as is, and you can reroll it with, and they say no fear. So, nah, not really. Fast to the fray. Reroll charge distance for all units within 6 at the start of the charge phase. Awesome. As I said, drop them in an alpha strike. Be with a 9. Now the only issue is, can you make a 9-inch charge? A 9-inch charge is pretty hard to do, but with re-rolling gets way more likely. It's essentially a huge buff, and probably bigger than any buff you can give to your Grey Knights with the other stuff, because a banner is absolutely useless as long as you don't get into close combat. You need to get into close combat to profit from the +1 attack. you need to get into close combat to reroll all hits with Drago. So this is actually the real amplifier before any other amplifiers can kick in. So I like this Warlord trait really much. Essentially a very good one, no matter what. Nemesis Lord, +1 damage to all melee weapons if it's not a relic. I probably would rather take the +1 to wound rolls when charging one over this one if you want to deal with tougher guys. This can be an option because, you know, Warlord traits are something that is changed for the army, can be taken. And if you need more punch, I would rather have +1 wound than damage, because in total it will probably result into more damage anyway. And then Loremaster, which is something that is pretty nice now because we have so many. 1+1 psychic power generated is cool and all because they have pretty good psychic powers, and some of them are situational, so +1 is actually pretty nice to have if you need an additional one. But then again, in terms of supporting your army, the reroll charging is certainly the best one. Space Marine Stratagems. We can use stratagems that already existed, like Tactical Flexibility, True Silver Armor, Only Death Does Duty End, Honor the Chapter, Wisdom of Ancients, and Orbital Bombardment. None of these is really that interesting, but probably Honor the Chapter would be, because if you get into a fight that you cannot really finish, Honor the Chapter might do the finishing blow. And since all of your units are really good in close combat most of the time, because they have the psi weapons and whatnot, they get to profit more from Honor the Chapter than normal Space Marines probably would. Same goes for Only Death Does Duty End, especially if you're talking about Dreadknight suits, and obviously that will be something that can kick in. True Silver Armor is more likely to be a thing for us because the Dreadknight is a vehicle. He's not a monstrous creature, so he can actually profit from True Silver Armor very much. Alright, next thing, GK stratagems. Now we're talking real GK, not SM, copy paste. First thing we have is Teleportarium, which is 1 warp charge deep strike for GK infantry unit or Dreadnought. Hallelujah. So the stratagem does exactly what the Dreadnought could do with a psychic power, but let's face it, a psychic power can only be casted once, and a Teleportarium obviously can be casted another time, so we have more units to move around the map. We have purgation squads with the heavy weapons getting into position. We can start on the table, which is really big thing, because obviously deep striking with alpha strikes requires units on the board, because half of the army has to start on the board, and the Teleportarium in combination with Gate to Infinity will allow us to have more granite units on the board that still make it into close combat within seconds. Mental Focus is the next one. Is 1 charge also. One Saga can attempt 1 more power. Why not? Really good one. It is situational, but most of the time this actually will be nice, because every unit you have knows Smite, and just in case they know another power, for example, they can go Vortex and Smite if you need more damage at that specific spot where the unit does not have the capability to do so. That's nice. I like it. Teleportation boost. Warp Charge 1 also. Additional shunt for an Interceptor squad. So that is actually a pretty big one, because Interceptors do the exact same as I said about the Dreadnoughts and so on. They are rather mobile, and pretty much the only thing in the Grey Codex that is still capable of moving faster than 12. And the shunt move is obviously really nice. And usually after you finish your shunt, your opponent will be like, pew, I got the tactical option out of the way with the Interceptor, so I can go much more relaxed with moving away my units from objectives more loosely, because I know the Interceptors will not be in range. And this effect will now bite him if he doesn't know about it, because you can shunt and you can abuse mistakes like that. And then in addition, if he does know about the stratagem and if he does know Greyhats well enough that he remembers the situation, you can force him to do stuff that he doesn't want to, which is also a good thing. So this one is situational more than others, but it is good still. I would use it if I had the chance. Next one is Psychic Channeling, 1 warp charge. Roll 3d6 for psychic tests. That's plain good. If you need a psychic test to really go off, and there is really good ones, you can use a command point and make sure that you get it. Because 3d6 and then reroll one of them with the other stratagem is actually pretty much 100% reliable in combination with all your other stuff that you have to help you out with Psychic and the fact that everybody is a Psyker. The Aegis is 2 charges, so pretty expensive. Roll 3d6 for Deny the Witch test. Super situational. The Deny the Witch test has to be really important for me to consider using 2 command points when considering other options. That's all I'm gonna say. It's not bad, but it is situational. Heed the Prognosticas. 2 charges plus 1 invuln save, or for a GK character is essentially great. Because Iron Halo makes you a 4+. In a Dreadknight you also have the 4+. And your characters are pretty mean, pretty strong close combat beasts. But they're brought down by anti-tank weaponry rather quickly because of the d6 damage. So every invuln save helps, and +1 to this, especially on Drago, because obviously he has a Storm Shield, so he goes to a 2+. Librarians have access to Storm Shields now, because Games Workshop apparently forgot that the Librarian in the Space Marine Codex does have a Storm Shield option. So it's great news for Grey Knights. We now have a 2+ in one save if we want to. Really good one, although it is expensive. It is Form Charge 2. So if you want to spam this and use it as your character as a bullet sponge, still not as effective. Armory of Titan. 1 or 3 gets you 1 additional or 2 additional relics. Obviously we cannot talk about this. This is a good option if relics are great and your relics are relatively good. So can be an option unless you feel you need more command points. Psychic Onslaught is warp charge first. Command points 2 does do +1 strength and AP for Psy and C shooting weapons, which is heavy Psy cannons, Gatling silencers. Big deal. Why? The silencer is a good weapon per se, because it has a lot of shots. It always has them. It's not d6 or something weird. And it has one problem. It's strength 4. Would be nicer if it's strength 5, because it gets +1 to wound against all toughness 4 dudes. Gets +1 to wound against all toughness 5 dudes, which is essentially the majority of the units in the game. They are either toughness 3, 4, or 5. So big deal, +1 strength. +1 AP. The silencer does not have any AP, so great. My +1 AP is always great, no matter what. +2 AP is also great, no matter what, but AP3 is like, eh, if somebody has a invuln save, it's probably not even worth it. But +1 is good. Very good stuff. So essentially you go into a heavy bolter profile, except you get double the shots, and you get double the damage, since a Psy weapon does deal 2 damage. So that's great. And the other one, the Psy Cannon, is strength 7. Strength 7 is meh, because it wounds toughness 3 on 2s, but does not in case of vehicles. Where light vehicles it only wounds on 3s, medium vehicles on 4s, and tougher vehicles only on 5s, which is obviously not that much. And toughness 4 infantry still only gets wounded on 3s. Now +1 strength drops the AP +1, which is great, because as I said, AP2 is good stuff, and absolutely good in any situation, I'd say. And the strength 8 deals +1 to heavy, +1 to medium vehicles, and +1 to toughness 4. So that is good stuff. I think both of these are really good. The second one is actually the same, and you can take everything I just said and translate that into bolt guns, because Psybolt ammunitions gives you +2 for 2 command points. It gives you +1 strength and AP for bolt weapons, and we all know how good hurricane bolters already are. They have a humongous amount of firepower. With the +1 strength, they essentially get +1 to wound against the majority of targets, and they do get AP 1, which is obviously better than AP 0. Every single Grey Knight that doesn't drop his Stormbolter has one. Good stuff. Your Stormbolter fire just got way more efficient. The Psybolt and the Psychic Onslaught are both expensive ones, but they help very much with the idea of a Alpha Strike. The Alpha Strike has to do enough damage to finish the targets, and these essentially make sure that your Psy Cannons and also the silencers can deal enough damage. Your bolt guns can deal enough to infantry, for example. Remember, the Grey Knights have a teleportation spell. So that Lander Raider Crusader is moving across the table within seconds, lands within 9 inches of you, and unloads the entire Stormbolter, Hurricane Bolter combo into your face with Psybolt ammunition. That will hurt. I can guarantee that will hurt, no matter what it targets. Same goes for the Storm Raven gunship, and also obviously for Storm Talon gunships and normal Grey Knight infantry. So this is not a situational one. This is a good one, no matter what. The bolt and the Psy can be good. Psy is only a problem because you have to drop your Stormbolter to get the cannon. But silencers, for example, do not cost you much. They cost you 2 points if you drop the Stormbolter. So why not? You can deal with it. Very good synergy with Drago, because Drago allows you to reroll everything around him, which is really nice, and then the +1 strength will deal even more and make sure you get your command points benefit. Good stuff. Finest Hour, double hour range for a GK character, 2 points. Situational, but can be very powerful. Just mention one very specific one. For example, Drago will get a 12-inch aura of rerolling everything. Good one for the Brother Captain 2. Good one for the banner, because it's hard to stay within range when the banner is moving around. And essentially, if you're increasing the range and you get, let's say, 2 more units into range because of the 12-inch bubble, you essentially gained 10 attacks or even more. Depends how many models are in the squads, but let's say 5 minimum squads gains you 10 attacks, which is a big deal. So this one is something that you have to have in your imagination, and always play around with the idea, what kind of benefit do I get? Translate that into something, what happens if I use it? And then you can decide whether or not it's absolutely bad at the moment or not, because it's a very situational stratagem. Right, so to sum it up, I really think they are good. There's multiple options here that deal very well with problems that the Grey Knights have, such as unreliable shooting or not enough shooting, moving stuff around the board even more, dealing with the Alpha Strike versus stuff on the ground problem. I don't know, it's really good. I like it. Next one. Sanctic Discipline. Purge Soul, Gate of Infinity, and Hammerhand are still unchanged and as they are. Still good as they are, but obviously don't take too many of the same kind, because you will have a problem with efficiency. Sanctuary is the new one. Warp Charge 6, so easy to get for you. Units within 12 inches get either a 5+ in 1 save or +1 to pre-existing in 1 saves. Now, if you remember, the Stratagem allows you to get +1 in 1 save. This one allows you to get another in-one save addition, which means you have an option for a 2+ in-one saves even on your normal characters. So, great news for the Dreadknight. He's now basically really good because he has a own psychic power that he can get, which would be Sanctuary if he wants to. So he always has access to a 3+ in-one and a normal Dreadknight obviously to a 4+ in-one. And if you're having the Stratagem as well, you also have access to 2+ in-one saves. That's even something that demons can't really deal with very well. Especially since you can re-roll that one save with another stratagem. So you're paying a lot of stratagems, but this psychic power always will exist, and that's a great one. Love it. Astral Aim, 5 range, so 5 range, 5 charges, super easy to get. Units with an 18 can target non-visible units and ignore cover saves. The idea is good, but Astral Aim is very situational. Because you have to ask yourself, what would I rather have? Another option for moving around the map wherever I want to. Another option for boosting my in-one save to a 5+ or even higher. For a 4+ for guys in a close combat, for example. If you take the Nemesis warding stuff and you add Sanctuary, you have 4+ in-one saves in close combat with Grey Knight units, which is actually pretty scary. And Vortex is also a good one. I think Astral Aim is not bad, but I would only take it on pretty much one unit. And because it's really unlikely that you have so much problems with cover, unless somebody has a ability that increases cover saves. In that case, it is really nice to have. And the other thing would be something like Astral Militär, where you have your Commissar and he's hiding behind a building and he thinks he's safe. That's when Astral Aim can actually do something. The only reason why the power is not absolutely trash is the fact that you can take this on one unit and put it into Deep Strike Reserve, which then allows you to drop somewhere and use Astral Aim on whatever unit needs Astral Aim for that turn, and be sure that the situational thing, if the situation ever arises, you will be there. You will be in range and you will be casting Astral Aim. And at worst, the unit that has Astral Aim can still only cast Smite. And it's very unlikely that you will have to have multiple guys with the same power all the time, especially on an Alpha Strike. So I can see use for it. That's what I'm trying to say. Astral Aim is not good in per se. It is too situational to be good, but you have the options to make it good. And that's something that makes it usable. Usable is the right word, nothing else. Vortex of Doom, 8, so hard spell. For you it's a 7, which is a medium chance, and with your rerolling it's not even a big unreliable thing that kills you. It targets the nearest model within 12, and then its unit also, and every unit that is within 3 inches of said model. And they all take D3 mortal wounds. Now that one is essentially what it's trying to say is it's Smite, but it's better. Because Smite only targets one unit, and this one can deal with multiple units. And think about it, Vortex of Doom is castable into a close combat. And in a close combat, this is obviously a huge deal because it's more likely that units are gonna be piled onto each other, which makes Vortex of Doom rather effective. Also think of it as a second damage spell that isn't Smite. Obviously you can't use Smite multiple times on the same guy, so Vortex of Doom adds another damage spell to your psychic abilities. Purge Soul is really unreliable. Your grants don't even have that huge of a leadership difference, and Purge Soul only works on leadership. Vortex of Doom doesn't care if your leadership is what or what, doesn't do anything. It just deals mortal wounds no matter what. And then the second big up, how do you say it? Whatever. The second big thing about it is that the vortex makes more sense to cast on something that's big. Why? Imagine a Imperial Knight. You cast Vortex of Doom on the Imperial Knight. Why not? If the target is big, there's a very high chance it has a huge wound pool, and it has a good save. Almost every big vehicle has a 3+ save, making mortal wounds more attractive. And then the thing is, it goes 3 inches from said model. So if that model is a big vehicle, you have a huge AoE around the vehicle that will hurt the enemy. So it increases the range of this power to more than just 12. It's essentially 15, and then more the bigger the model is. So let's say 2 squads in a Rhino, jumping out, shooting your guys. You Vortex of Doom the Rhino, and the squads next to it will also take damage. And remember, only one model has to be touching it, and the entire unit will take the D3 mortal wounds. So that's a downside, because you're not scaling very well with huge unit compositions, but you deal a lot of damage against multiple unit compositions. So don't think of it as an AoE per se, but more about a improved smite with the option to deal with multiple units at the same time and help you out in close combat. Vortex of Doom is really scary, because every single Grey Knight unit can take this. Vortex of Doom earlier was unreliable, was hard to get, and no Grey Knight unit ever could take it unless it was a librarian or something that can specifically take a psychic power. This Vortex of Doom is everywhere. If you want to, you can give everybody Vortex of Doom and smear it across the whole entire map. That's how powerful that spell can be. So this spell is not specifically very good. In a different army, it would probably be not even that nice, but in a Grey Knight army, it's pretty good. Always have to see it from a different perspective than the other Psyker-based armies. Alright, GK Relics. Now, remember, we have a Stratagem allows you to take another relic, and also 3 relics if you want to. Let's keep that in mind. Alright, so the first one is the Domina Liber Demonica, -1 deership for all demons within 6. Useless. Sorry, but it is useless. Demons do not care too much about leadership, and if their Bloodthirster that comes into phase is having -1 leadership, who cares? It's really not a big deal. I would never take it, even against demons. Soulglaive replaces a halberd, which is actually a really good thing, because the halberd doesn't cost anything pretty much. +1 strength, AP 3, damage D3, reroll hit and wound rolls. It's good. That's all. It's just plain good. It has more AP. It has the other stats of a halberd, reroll hit and wound. Wound is rerolling is really nice. It synergizes very well with Hammerhand and the Warlord trait. Soulglaive is good. It's just, you can take it if you want to deal more damage. Curse of Sacrifice, only for infantry, no Dreadknights by the way. They have no option here. 5+ Fiendhood Pain. Good. Just plain good. Very good on Psykers, because you will most likely deal wounds to yourself at some point. It's good because your units are not very survivable, and obviously this is great for something like Drago. Makes them even more of a nuisance, and sorry, can't take it on Drago, but essentially any Grandmaster equivalent that is kitted out can take care of himself as soon as he has this, because he has an addition to his 2+ and his 4+ save. Makes stuff pretty tough to kill. But it is infantry, so it doesn't work for vehicles and the like. That's why you have to take the vehicle stratagem that allows you to get a 5+ Fiendhood Pain for your Land Raider, Dreadknight, and Storm Raven and whatnot. So that's a different one. Drago can't take these because he has relics, and if a character has a relics, he cannot take any additional ones. And named characters can't take anything anyway. Fear of Deimos is a Stormbolter, so 2 points. Range 30, Rapid Fire 3, Strength 5, AP 1, Damage 1. It's good. I would probably not take it because there's better ones, but it is actually better than any other sidekick relic, how I call them, I have seen. Because range 30 means you get into rapid fire range really fast, and then again you have deep strike on pretty much everybody, so it's really, really easy to get in there. So you get 6 shots out of the thing. It's essentially 2 heavy bolters. That's how I would see it. It's a double heavy bolter on a pistol, which means on a pistol on a Stormbolter model, which is really easy. I mean, Stormbolters are not really that hard to come by. You could give this to a librarian if you wanted to, for example. It's a good one. Destroyer of Relics, which is a Nemesis Demon Hammer, which is 13 points, I think. Strength times 2, AP 3, damage 4, -1 to hit. I would not take it. Why? Because it still has -1 to hit. If they fix that, if we actually gave you no modifier to your hammer, I would take it. But this way the damage 4 is really good, but the -1 is not good. I would take this one if you have an idea of running something that allows you to reroll something. Now that sounds very ambitious, but if you run Carlo Drago and you have a second HQ that you want to run with him, for example in a Purgation Squad list where you reroll everything and you move forward with heavy weapons, you have another HQ with you for sure, because you have to take 2 detachments, and it's going to be a librarian or a let's say ancient or whatever you want to take. On that one, the destroyer of Relics would be okay, because you would hit on 3s rerolling, which is good enough. That's as good as 2+. But then again, I probably wouldn't take it. The Banner of Refining Flame. It's a sacred banner, so can only be taken by a chapter ancient or a what's it called? It doesn't matter. The same guy. All the guys that are waving banners. The paladin. You lose your rights of battle, but in this case you get the smite to deal d6 mortal wounds instead. You drop down to range 6, so Brotherhood Captain would probably be nice, but I don't know, it's not bad. It's actually a pretty good one. D6 mortal wounds is a big deal, and it is every time, so 100% reliable. And if you want to have a banner waving dude, you might as well give him something else, because you will make sure you protect him, and this gives him a little bit more punch. So the idea would be, well, we will ignore the banner because there's other dudes rampaging around, and if we kill them we delete more attacks than killing the banner. And now the banner suddenly became much more dangerous, and casting d6 mortal wounds each turn is actually pretty nasty. That is something you will be worried about, because if he gets that 6, there's gonna be vehicles going down, monsters, creatures, whatnot. It's pretty nasty to have. Now, mind you, in most armies we only have access to one of these. So how would I rate them in terms of value between them? If you take a banner, I would probably take the banner on first place. If you don't take a banner, obviously you can't take it. Simple as that. So Destroyer of Helix I wouldn't take, because if you're taking a model that can take a hammer, you most likely have a Stormbolt as well, and then I would just take the Fear of Deimos. It's only 2 points. You have to pay these 2 points anyway, and it does deal damage 100%. You don't even have to make it in close combat. It does deal damage no matter what. This is actually interesting to have, because I never take Fear of Deimos usually. 5+ Pheno Pain is really good the bigger your wound pool is. If your HQ is a weakling, you probably wouldn't take it. And the Soul Glaive is good. I mean, I would probably just take the Soul Glaive and not the Destroyer of Helix, unless I really, really want that hammer. and then I might as well take the Destroyer. But the Soulglaive is good. I like it. I think it's a very good one, no matter what. And I would never take the Domina Liber Demonica. It's just plain not good. The Pheno Pain is always better. The Fury is better. The Destroyer is better. Yeah, everything. Wouldn't even take it if I had 3 options. If I had 3 options, I would still go with Soulglaive or Destroyer, Fury, and Cuirass, and then would drop the Destroyer or Soulglaive for the banner if I had a banner. Alright. The Grandmaster in Nemesis Dreadknight is 190 points, which makes him 30 points more expensive than the average Dreadknight. Obviously, he is a Grandmaster, so he has a weapon skill of 2, and that weapon skill is unmodified. So he loses ballistic skill, but he never does lose his weapon skill, which is nice. He always has rights of battle, which means he will reroll once for himself and everybody within 6 inches. And you might say, well, Grandmaster can do the same. No, he can't, because the Dreadknight is a huge model. Remember this, it has a big base, so 6 inches from that big base probably means you will reach more than the average Grandmaster would ever do. So Rights of Battle does more for him. Also means he has the ability skill of 2+ as well. So he will be hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, so pretty much 100% with all the weapons you give him, which is nice because the Dreadknight has expensive options, and the biggest downside is he doesn't hit. So in this case, that will be better than average. You still will lose some ballistic skill, but that's just the case of everything. Everything else, stat-wise, is the same, but you have a leadership 9, which is okay, and a 4+ save because you have the shield that the Dreadknight has, plus the Iron Halo, which makes this model actually really easy to buff. You can run him with Sanctuary since he is a Psyker level 2, and he takes Sanctuary for himself and something else, and there you go, he goes to town. He has all the same options a Dreadknight has, so he has the ability to take a teleporter, take a hammer, or do a shunt move or something like that. It's nice. He is a good option if you really want to take a Dreadknight anyway, and it allows you to take a Dreadknight in HQ squad. I mean, Dreadknight in HQ is actually pretty nasty, and will allow you to spam more Dreadknights if you want. You can go for a full army of Dreadknights pretty much. Although that wouldn't be possible necessarily because you have to hit the point cost before you run out of points. So, you know. I think he's a good option if you wanted to take a Grandmaster anyway. If you wouldn't want to take a Grandmaster, you most likely wouldn't like this one either. But in terms of point costs, I think this model is better than the average Grandmaster, since it does amplify the effect and makes it more survivable in terms of damage. Although he will become a monstrous creature, he will become a character. He is still above 12 wounds, so you can target him freely, and that will bring him down at some point. Just the ability to increase your invulnerable saves makes this the really nasty point. And your option, the opponent also has the options to focus him. So if you make him tanky enough, he will soak a lot of firepower. He will be scary, and your opponent might be tricked into trying to kill him, although he probably shouldn't that round. So he has what I like to call Wraith effect. Wraiths are not that scary in close combat, but they are annoying. They are really fast. They have 3+ invuln saves. They have a bunch of wounds, and they have toughness 5. So if a Wraith is coming forward, you're always scared, and you want to kill them, but at the same time they resist pretty much everything. If you don't fail your 3+, you are really in trouble with the Wraith coming at you. And this guy has a 2+ save, so he's even more annoying. And his invuln save is just as good most of the time. So I like it. The fact that he's a character also allows him to get heroic intervention, which is great because, as I said, it's a big model, so it's easy for you to be within 6 inches of a fight. And if this guy moves in for an intervention, you better be scared because he does pack a punch. He has access to relics, which doesn't mean too much though, because obviously you have to replace stuff. He can't replace anything. He doesn't have anything that can be replaced. He's not infantry, so he can't take anything like a cuirass. But he could take the the Liva Demonica, but I don't know. I mean, that's all you pretty much get because you don't have a sacred banner either. He also has access to Warlord traits, which is a big deal, as I said, because having a huge bubble of revolt charges within 6 is better than having a small one. That's all there is to say about this Warlord trait. Essentially makes you really scary no matter what Warlord trait you take, because the Dreadknight is already a scary thing, and most of the Warlord traits are force amplifiers. So I like that. Good idea here. The Grandmaster is essentially a solid option, I'd say, but it's not going to be included in any relist. I don't think so. He still has the same issues that other Dreadknights have. That's all there is to say about him. Alright, that's it. That is the Grand Codex review. Overall, I really like the changes. The 7s to 8s was a huge step in the right direction, I think, and now is even a better one, because for the very first time I actually have to think about what Greynight unit takes what psychic power, because for the first time in any edition pretty much, they have access to a bunch of psychic powers. And there's interesting ones, and there's interesting choices to make what tech you want to take. That's actually a really nice one. In addition to this, you can also change your force weapon war gear very easily, which is also a big deal. And then you have synergies between these and the stratagems to make this even more fun. So I think, although the Greynights did not get any new units per se, except the Greyknight Grandmaster, they still have way more options than they used to have, and it will take some time to playtest what's good, what's not. But it is fun to do that, and essentially wasn't really an option in the old edition. You pretty much knew what to take, and you had to luck out and go for an invisibility, and I really dislike that. I think this is a great change towards the right direction in no matter what case. They still have pre-existing issues with the long-range AT and whatnot, and they will most likely not change, but since they got the ability to take these in Greynight Detachments, you still have the option to ally them in, or have them as the core army and then ally stuff that stays on the ground that has long range AT, which is, for example, Astra Militarum, which I really like. The idea is cool, and I'm glad that they limited this to a detachment and not to an army. An army is a different thing than a detachment, because you have still more options than before. And at the same time, you can't profit from taking a bunch of deep striking, objective secure Grey units unless you take an entire detachment of them. I like the balance. I think it's really good that they include both options for us, so we still can take our Inquisitorial and Assassin guys. And I know the Grey Knight players still will be salty that the Demon Hunter Codex is now just a Grey Knight Codex, but why the heck do you just take a detachment full of normal Grey Knights and ally a detachment that is a mixture of Inquisition, Adeptus Ministorum, and Assassins, and there you go. You have all the old options you had before. You even have Cybolt ammo back, so I think that's fair enough with me. I like it. I'll ally in what I want anyway, and it is fluffy no matter what, because Grey Knights would never just come alone, not even in a demon invasion, because there would be some stuff to kill that is not a demon, and that's not what they are designed to do. They are just the elite. So I think it's fluffy to do the allying, and I think it's good too. Alright. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked it, please leave a like. If you have questions, leave a question, and I'll read them and answer them
later. Alright, hope you guys had a nice overview on what the Grey Knight Codex looks like and what we have inside and what you want to try out. And as always, happy wargaming.